This podcast represents the opinions of our hosts and their guests only. The content here should not be taken as medical advice and is for informational purposes only. And because each person is so unique, please consult your healthcare professional for any medical questions. Welcome to Once Shattered, Picking Up the Pieces. Linda Major, Jack Major, and Ellen Bennett are three fierce advocates, two moms and a dad who are passionate about changing the way eating disorders and mental illness are viewed in our society. Linda, Jack, and Ellen believe we need to stop the stigma, band together, and help people find resources and support early on. They advocate to foster awareness, enhance education, and improve treatment, as well as to help society understand and embrace individuals and families who are affected by eating disorders and all mental health conditions.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Once Shattered, Picking Up the Pieces, episode 109. Today, we have a very special episode for you, and the title of our episode today is An Opioid Tragedy and Beyond with Tamara MacDuff. First, I would like to, again, thank you for joining us, and I would like to just share a quote. I always share quotes, but this is my own statement, and I want my husband and my dear friend and fellow advocate, Ellen, to see what they think about this. I think it's wonderful when celebrities speak out about their depression, drug and alcohol dependence, eating disorders, and all mental health issues. But why is it society has more empathy and compassion for them than for the family next door, their brother, or the person on the street? Ellen, what do you think about that?
Okay. I truly believe that there is a level of we almost expect it with celebrities and famous personalities. And then the other side of that is why it's so hard for everybody else is because of the silence, because of the stigma, because of the shame. And it feeds into exactly why we're here and exactly what we're doing is we need to start the conversation. This should be talking about mental health issues, addiction, eating disorders, should be as common as any other conversation. And we should be open to it because once we embrace it as it could be any one of us Absolutely. At any time, we'll be able to open up and be kinder and be more compassionate.
Thank you, Ellen Bennett. Yeah. That's beautifully said. And Jack, my husband, my soulmate, what do you think of that?
Everybody knows somebody. Everybody knows somebody suffering from some type of mental illness. And, through our travels, that's been the case, no matter where we've been with politicians, medical people, everybody knows somebody. And this COVID crisis and has just opened this Pandora's box of everybody coming out, football players, tennis players coming out and saying, they've suffered from anxiety, depression. They've got to take a break. They've got to get their lives back. And so that's been good. And that's great that they're, starting that conversation, but it has to filter down to everybody, not just the people that are on the morning news shows and the sports shows and everything, so.
That's great. Thank you, Jack. And I agree with you both wholeheartedly. So without further ado, I'd like to tell you about our guest today, Tamara MacDuff. Resilient and determined are two very apt words to describe Tamara MacDuff. After the heartbreak of losing her daughter, Emily, to fentanyl poisoning in 2018, she founded You Matter, the Be, Do, and Have path forward to help people in recovery from addiction, as well as funeral directors and business owners. Her Emily's Blend coffee, created with the woman of the Coffee Connection, is their #1 selling coffee blend, helping to bring awareness to stop overdose and supporting sustainable recovery by helping to fund the organization's operations of hiring women in recovery.
Oh my gosh, Tamara, we're just so thrilled to have you because we need to start the conversation. We have to start talking about this. Anyways, Tamara, a certified SCORE mentor since 2011. She was elected the first female chair of the Rochester SCORE chapter in 2020. You're going to have to tell us more about SCORE. She is a certified John Maxwell coach, trainer, and speaker. Which facilitates transformation tables that change your world. I need to know more about that. She became president of Rochester Professional Consultant Network in 2019 and led us through our digital transformation required by the pandemic, moving us to a values-based and I can talk this morning, and member-centered approach. You may have heard her radio show, Rock Voices, woohoo, or Rethinking Business, Success Sauce and Two Pickles. Oh, I need to know more on Rochester Free Radio on WRFZ 106.3 FM.
Wow. That's quite a bio, and it continues that she is the owner of Now Digital Marketing, which helps businesses drive sales and grow their business. And this is interesting to me. She was one of the first digital marketers to put funeral homes into the social sphere. I'd like to learn more about that. She works and supports with many nonprofits in the area. She enjoys rock and roll, and along with her husband, Jim, she enjoys watching football. And they have 2 cats, Ren and Stimpy, and I love those names. Love those names. They have 5 children, and I've been blessed with 5 grandchildren.
So, Tamara, you are such a brave, courageous woman and a wonderful mom, and we'd just like to extend this warm welcome to you. And to the listeners out there, there is even a little bit more to her bio, so I would encourage you to look at the show notes to find all the details.
Tamara, at this point, would you like to share some facts about opioid crisis with us? Educating ourselves and understanding the reality will help all of us learn and realize it could happen to anyone.
Sure. Thank you, everybody, for having me. This is a very important topic, like all the topics are that you address. I mean, the opioid crisis, the overdose and drug deaths, fentanyl poisonings combined have killed over 100,000 Americans so far, up to about now, according to the CDC. Every 11 minutes, someone in the U.S. dies from an opioid overdose. And overdoses are the leading cause of death in the U.S. for those under 50. And they kill more Americans than car crashes and gun homicides combined. So, and it does affect everybody. Like Jack was saying, we all know somebody who's suffering from addiction of some kind, especially the drug addictions. We know somebody who's suffering from mental illness or a depression of some kind. And they get addicted through all kinds of different pathways. And as many different ways to get addicted to opioids, there are different pathways to get out of it and get into recovery as well.
Well, the 3 of us have lost daughters to different psychiatric illnesses, but there are so many common threads, and there is a story behind each loss. Can you tell us a little bit about your precious daughter, Emily Short, and her journey?
Sure. I love talking about Emily. I talk about Emily to anybody who would listen. Emily was born with a condition called arthrogryposis, which meant she had contractures in her feet and ankles. For her, it was in her feet and ankles. The doctors told us that she would never walk, and she subsequently had many, many leg surgeries, major leg surgeries, minor leg surgeries, heel cord releases. She had the whole gamut done. And in fact, she had a very unique way of looking at that. Other friends were talking to her about broken arms that they might have gotten. And, I broke my leg once, I broke my arm. And Emily said, I don't need to break my bones. I have people who do that for me.
What age were those?
She
surgeries?
started at 5 months.
Oh my gosh.
5 months old, she had her first surgery. So she had been on pain meds for her whole entire life. And she learned how to deal with that pain, but she was in a constant pain. And she never let anything define her except herself. So her disability didn't define her. Later on, her mental diagnosis didn't define her. And we didn't know about her addiction, but I'm sure she wouldn't have let that define her either. So at some point, when she grew up and she met a man and she had a boyfriend, and he introduced her to heroin, and she became addicted, unbeknownst to us. And so fast forward those 3 years, I knew she was in trouble, and I was begging her to move home. I said, you're 22, you're making a mess of your life, but that's what you're supposed to do at 22. I did it. We've all done it on various levels. Just come home and let me help you. Let me help you. We'll just figure it out. And she was in the process of doing that. And then we got the call that she overdosed and she was in ICU. And you can't use Emily and overdose in the same sentence, right? For everybody who knows her. But obviously we can. So we have to now. But nobody could do that. So she did it all while none of us knew. She was able to hide it very, very well.
That's heartbreaking. And it's amazing how frequently loved ones say that things were kept under wraps, that they could keep it away from us. And we think that we're always so astute, right, and aware, and they can be masters at keeping secrets.
Your children, I don't care how close you are with your kids, because Emily and I, we had a complicated mother-daughter relationship, like most mother-daughter relationships are. But we talked often, and she talked to me about many, many, many different things. So much so that I would be like, well, she had a problem, she would come to me. Mm-hmm. And she didn't. And I think a lot of it was the shame of the addiction. She knew we would be disappointed, and she didn't want to disappoint us. Plus she thought she could control it.
Mm-hmm.
So she was on pain meds,
Yep.
hydrocodone?
Yes.
And for many years.
For many years,
Okay.
yep.
And did they, at some point, stop prescribing them to her, try to wean her off them? Because I know, when the state and federal government started watchdogging, prescribing of opioids, a lot of doctors just said no. Especially the primary care physicians and
Yep.
stuff. They made people at least go to a pain clinic to get this stuff, right?
Yeah, she wasn't on them constantly.
Okay.
It was just out of her surgeries. So she had a surgery maybe every year for a while, and then she went several years without them. But after her surgeries, they did keep a close eye on those prescriptions. And, excuse me, they would only maybe renew it one time. Mm-hmm. And she had to have a pretty good explanation for that. And as far as I knew, there was no evidence of her going to different doctors to have a constant supply. So I thought she just knew how to use them and was using them in accordance. But, that's part of the story that we don't know.
Yeah. As a pharmacist, I saw this, especially back in the 2000 to 2010 era. It was just, Vicodin was written like candy.
Well, that was the time when, no patient should be in pain.
Right? That was started in 2000.
And the pendulum swings in everything, it swings in medicine, it swings in education, and it's overcorrection, undercorrection, just trying to find that balance.
Yeah. Her boyfriend introduced her to the heroin, but we don't know why. So I don't know if it was, he said to her, this will help with your pain. This is just another level. I don't know. She referred to it as sleeping powder. So she always said that she had trouble sleeping. So I don't know if he said this will help you sleep. Just take a little bit. I don't know how it actually happened or how she ended up trying it. I don't know how she got addicted. All I know is that she did become addicted. And when she died, it was actually pure fentanyl that she got.
Yeah. God, it's terrible. So Tamara, your daughter, she overcame so many obstacles, obviously, in her life from starting surgeries at 5 months. It's heartbreaking. But she overcame a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so can you share some more of Emily's wins?
Oh, sure. There's one win that she was very, very proud of. Every year she competed in the Empire State Games for the physically challenged, and she loved going to that. And she ran track. So she did 3 events. She did the 1,500 meter, this 50 meter or whatever, and 500 meter. There's something in between. So she ran the 1,500 meter in 15 minutes and 33 seconds, which was 3 minutes less than the year before. And she was so proud of herself. She went home, she baked a cake. Because that's how she celebrated her wins, was by baking cakes. And she was very, very proud of that. And I told her, I said, you need to understand, there are people with 2 good legs. They can't run a 1,500 meter in 15 minutes. Yeah. And other things she did, she skied down Whiteface. She did that through the Empire State Games as well for their winter. She went up to Lake Placid. And she won the bronze medal the first year, and the second year, I think she got the gold medal in her slalom skiing. So,
wow.
It's just so sad.
Exceptional young lady.
Yeah.
These exceptional people are taken too soon.
Too soon. Yeah.
You know, and I mean, obviously, you know, all the surgeries then corrected her
They
feet and
didn't,
ankles?
sort of. They gave her some mobility, but they didn't really ever make her feet look normal. So she still had to wear her ankle foot orthotics or AFOs that went all the way up the back of her leg and around her foot. In fact, when she was 18 months old, her physical therapist told me that we had to take down this wooden play set that her father and I, my husband at the time, had built, which we probably would have gotten divorced way sooner because that was just difficult to put together. And so it had steps going up the 12 feet off the ground to go to the monkey bars, and they were dowling rods. And she had braces at the time that had a metal bar that went from her hip all the way down to her foot, and on both sides of her leg, of each leg, and then a belt that went around it. So her therapist says to me, you need to take all these dowling rods off and put flat steps so Emily can climb. I said, look, Emily needs to adapt to the world. The world will not adapt to Emily. So if she can't climb 12 feet off the ground, I'm kind of okay with that. Mm-hmm. The very next day, a friend of mine, we had a bunch of people over the house, and they were looking out. They're like, oh, Emily must be doing really well. And she had climbed all the way up to the top and was about to crawl across the top of the monkey bars.
Oh, my.
Yeah. So, again, doing stuff that she was told she couldn't do, and she did it anyway.
So did she have to have, like she was skiing, were they special boots
Nope.
and running special shoes? No?
Nope.
Nothing
Nope.
to accommodate the
Nope.
brace. Okay.
No, they were hard to find, but no, they were just regular shoes.
So when she was younger and having these surgeries, they gave her pain medication?
Yes.
Was it narcotic pain medication?
Yes.
Oh, it was.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And, obviously when she was much younger, I controlled what she got and what she didn't. And when she was really young, they gave her liquid codeine, which she did not like.
Tasting.
Yeah. The pharmacist put the bubble gum flavor in it, but I have a feeling that it didn't really taste like bubble gum anyway.
Yeah.
We're getting to get a sense of Emily's incredible spirit and determination and the beautiful person that she was. I just love hearing those stories. I coach Special Olympics, and so that achievement and that sense of accomplishment is so powerful. Back to our conversation. Addiction, eating disorders, mental health concerns can happen to anyone. And all of these things will touch all of us at some point in our life. And if we're lucky, it'll only touch us once. There's so many common feelings and frustrations that we have through our journeys, the four of us. And it brings up so many different things. Even though our daughters died from a different disease, that shame, stigma, and sadness is prevalent across all of it. It's a common thread that weaves. And I know you're doing things to help change shame and stigma and how we view addiction and other mental health. So help us and help our listeners learn more.
Sure. Well, one of the things that I do is the radio show Rock Voices. That was created specifically to have conversations to move the community forward, to change things and remove the stigmas. And the pillars we use are mental illness, disabilities, and addiction. We will talk about anything that will remove a stigma, but we do focus on that. And that's every Sunday from 4 to 6. And I know we've had you guys on to talk about your Emily and eating disorders, because that is a very prevalent thing as well. And the other things I do is I work with the Coffee Connection, and I work with Recovery Always, and just trying to help them spread the word and do some outreach in the community. The Coffee Connection, we created a blend called Emily's Blend, very creative. And it is salted caramel and French vanilla. And the ironic thing is, it's delicious.
You know I'm
what?
ready.
I almost brought some and I totally forgot, so I'm going to have to get some to you. But it is the #1 seller at the Coffee Connection. And everybody, and what I really think the reason why that is because Emily's picture is on the 1-pound bag of beans. And there's a quote underneath that says, "You matter. Your past doesn't define you," or something like that. And I think it's because somebody can see a picture of a human being affected by the opioid crisis, and they ask what happened to her. And it allows the women of the Coffee Connection to tell their stories of recovery, but also tell and share Emily's story, because they all knew her and they loved her and they did that. And so those are some of the things, that I do. Any chance I get to try to remove a stigma I'll take that mantle up any day of the week.
That's great, and I've talked to in our story, the eating disorders, and I say, every 52 minutes. So 27 people a day die as a direct result of an eating disorder. And they're not all famous people.
No.
Right? But there's, 27 families out there every day that need to tell their story, because their child, wife, husband, whoever, was just as important as anybody that's on the evening news. And we just need to get all the stories out there.
Yep.
So that somebody pays attention that this is, a crisis in America. And I understand the opioid crisis. Everybody's focusing on that.
Sure.
I heard the mayor's, the mayor-elect is, going to do something different. But
I love them.
All mental illnesses.
Oh, yeah. Everybody needs to. And it's really interesting that you talk about like the celebrities coming clean and using their platform. And I think that's great that they use their platform. But if you look at it, that stuff really dies down relatively quickly and becomes quiet once again, once the initial shock wears off that they sent out this press release. But personally, I would much rather hear about Emily, your Emily, my Emily, any of the other 27 people that were lost to eating disorder, and your daughter, and any of them.
Right.
Exactly.
And I would rather hear their stories. And I think that's where the local media can come into play in everybody's community. And one of the things is tell the local stories. Forget about the latest celebrity to come out with a depression. They're celebrities because they have depression. They're celebrities because they have mental illness sometimes. Trust me when I tell you, they all suffer from low self-esteem and all this stuff. But focus on the local people.
Yeah.
What people don't often think about is how hard it is when somebody is in the midst of their struggle.
Yes.
To share. That is something that is profound to them because they are hurting so much. And usually people who suffer from any type of addiction or eating disorder, they already have some sort of self-esteem issue.
Sure.
And this just catapults it forward. So I think it's normal when people are depressed and hurting just in general. But with any of these mental health conditions, when somebody is hurting, instead of reaching out, you curl in.
They withdraw.
And
That's very true.
And that's a hard thing because people are so hard on themselves. And it's wonderful if there's a family member or family in general, they can be there. But I think sometimes they're very protective of their family and they don't want to hurt their family anymore, so they don't tell them everything that's going on. And that's why support groups are so important. That's why therapists and counselors are so important, because it's a place to let off some of that steam, because if they don't, that kettle's going to boil over, right? If there's not like that little spigot to let the steam out.
Absolutely. Yeah,
That's why they call it venting.
Yes. I've always told my kids, if you ever are having trouble with anything, talk to somebody. If you don't feel comfortable coming to me, that's fine. Go to a counselor, go to your guidance counselor, go to a teacher, go to your dad, go to whoever, go to grandma and grandpa. I don't care, but go talk to somebody and get the support that you need. So, I mean, that was always encouraged in our house, but
Right.
still, there's still that stigma of that shame, and I'm disappointing them, and I don't want to say anything.
Right. Well, they love their family. Also, there's a lot of times where the family needs support, and we just started a family member support group for people who are supporting a loved one who is an adult that's struggling. So it can be spouse, family member, friend. And we know how that is when you're in the midst of a struggle. The caregiver or the support person needs support too. I think those things are really important. And the other thing is that so many times when people are struggling, they go back to the same environment. And if it wasn't a good environment to begin with, to put them back in that same space is so difficult. And so many people do well in residential programs, but then the real challenge is
When they come
coming
out.
back. And I wrote about this in the book, and the analogy I used, it's kind of like there's this little kid, and he's on this beach all by himself, and he goes into the water and he starts to drown, and somebody just happens to be passing by and saves and revives this child. He goes to the hospital, he gets well, and then somehow that child ends up on that same beach alone again. It's got to be different, and I think as a society we just need to do better with that. But well, you are doing so many things to help others, and there's nothing worse than losing a child. It's parents' worst nightmare. So I understand the things that you're doing probably help you assuage some of your grief, and the things that we're trying to do help somewhat too. Is there any more that you want to share about the You Matter campaign? Because I think I love that idea of a picture and a quote in You Matter and talking about the person. And you have a special Facebook page too, right?
I do. I started it was kind of sort of like a passion project for me. Everything was a passion project once Emily died. And so, you just like,
We get that.
everybody understands
We
in this
totally get
room,
that.
right? We all, we all wanted our children's death to matter, to mean something and not be in vain. So I just dove right in and just did whatever I could. And one of the things I did was I created a Facebook page, a Facebook community that I'm reviving. And it is called The Addict's Soul, because I wanted to bring the human element back to the opioid addiction, because I didn't want her to just be a number. My daughter is more than a statistic. And you could do this but I called it The Addict's Soul because obviously with her addiction, but I really think it's anybody. But eating disorders kind of sort of fall under that in many ways, under addiction and mental illness. And people are in recovery from those as well. So I wanted to showcase the artistic and creative side of because some people processed what they went through by writing poetry. Some people wrote songs. Some people draw pictures. Some people write books. And I wanted to give people a platform to share their art, and to showcase their human side of that.
Absolutely.
And so that's what the Addict's Soul is about. So I'm always looking for people to contribute stories, books, excerpts, videos, songs, drawings, whatever it is you want to share, and kind of let the world see you as a person, not as a person in recovery, not as an addict, not as someone suffering from mental illness, but a person.
And when somebody is creating something, it's a very high level of being. It's almost a spiritual thing. You lose track of time, whether it's writing or drawing or whatever it is that you enjoy doing. And when you're passionate about something like that, it's a soul connection.
It is. It is. And some people don't want to share that, and I'm always okay with that. I'm just trying to open up a platform for those who do, who are ready. And if you're not ready, fine. Just come and enjoy the rest of the art. Follow the page. Whatever. I'll start posting some things about like resources for different things in the community where you can get some mental health help. Where the suicide hotline, the recovery places, and the recovery homes and things like that. So it's just a community that I'm starting to build for that. And the You Matter campaign, I created a video where I had people just say You Matter, and I did that to honor Emily on her 3rd angelversary. So, but I want to make that even bigger. Hey, I need to do more. I need to do another video. So if anybody wants to send me something, you just have to say You Matter. And then I'm going to, at the Coffee Connection, they've allowed me, once I can get people and volunteers and resources and paint and all that together, we're going to take one of the walls and we're going to draw a tree on it. And we're going to have leaves that'll be painted. Maybe they'll be paper. Maybe they'll be something, I don't know. And if any artists want to work on that, I'm open to doing that too, because you don't want me drawing a tree. I can't do stick figures, right? So that's not going to be good. But in each leaf, half of it is going to represent people who are in recovery, and the other half will honor those we've lost.
It's beautiful.
And again, it'll have a picture if you want. It'll have their name, dates if you want, or their favorite quote, or a word or two to describe them. And that's where the leaf, one side will be full of leaves, and then the other side will be kind of like fall, where it'll be a little bit more sparse, obviously.
Oh, that's great. That's wonderful. That is absolutely wonderful. I know from what we're doing, what Linda and I have done, and what Ellen's done with her foundation and everything, honoring Katie, it keeps our daughters with us.
Yes.
I know she's passed, but
you keep their spirit alive.
Her with us.
Her
we draw
legacy.
strength from that.
Yes.
To move forward, because it's frustrating. It's frustrating that sometimes I think nobody cares. I mean, really, unless it's affected you, nobody really cares. But then we get an email or a letter or from somebody we don't know, or Linda will get a call from a mom or somebody struggling, and it keeps us going because it's one person at a time. And,
yes.
But our daughters are still touching people in such a deep and profound way.
Yeah.
And, they're such beautiful spirits. We just had to do this. And I think it's angel driven for sure.
And I love your angelversary. Is that what you said?
Angelversary,
Yeah.
yeah. That's what some other angel moms are calling things. So I was always looking for new ways of saying
Expressing
things and
it.
expressing it. So
And
It's
sometimes
the best way, that angelversary, because they are angels.
Right.
And we celebrate their life every day, every year, every holiday, because they're so much part of who we are and what we do. And I think that's part of our journeys, keeping the conversations going and saying we can't shrink away. We need to be out there saying, hey, did you know? Think about this. And what I loved, what you've been saying, is supporting those in recovery.
Yeah.
That's a huge mission for all of us to take on and say, what is it that we can do? How can we help? Because that connection and that support and recovery is essential.
They can't fully recover without the support of the community, the family, the friends. It's paramount.
Well, I mean, the healthcare system is overwhelmed. Okay?
Yes.
But if we could keep these people who are in recovery to stay in recovery, it wouldn't be so overwhelmed with them going back through that revolving door.
That's very true.
Over and over again.
Like the Coffee Connection employs only women, but they have to be in recovery. And if they've been in jail, then that's even bonus for them. Right, that's the way she looks at it.
Shout out to the Coffee Connection. Here's one thing we can all do.
Go buy coffee.
yes.
Yes, go buy coffee.
Yeah, that helps pay for their paychecks, right? And so that they can stay employed. And while they're employed, they do have a group. She meets with them every week, and they learn life skills. They learn business skills, and it's an important program. And there may be other programs, so if you're not partial to that, look it up. But
Well, I think that's so important. And I say this all the time, that it's very important for people who've been through whatever struggle they've been through, any sort of mental illness, addiction, anorexia, any eating disorder. You can go right down the line. They need new connections and people to see them through different eyes. They need new beginnings. We all need new beginnings. And just as parents who've lost a child, you don't get over it.
you don't.
People kind of think sometimes, people make comments and it's like, well, it was just 5 years for Emily. Well, it barely seems like a year. Like you said, every holiday, she's with us. But we have a new community because of Emily. And I have wonderful family and, some wonderful friends who get it. But there's a lot of people who don't get it. Your circle gets smaller. Mm-hmm. But we have wonderful new connections like Ellen Bennett and Sharon Mathiasen from Moonshadow Spirit who get it in a way nobody else can. And you don't want people to get it. You don't want people to get it, but you need people who've got it.
Sharon and her friend Lauren from Moonshadow Spirit came to Emily's funeral. Sharon knew Emily for years. And Lauren said to me, she came through the line and she said, "Tam, I am so sorry." She said, "You know what? This club sucks, but the company's pretty great." Yeah. And that made me laugh and smile. And I knew exactly what she was saying because the company has been great. And you don't want parents. Thank God people don't understand everything that we're going through.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So what ages are employed at the Coffee Connection?
They're usually young adults. Some are middle age. It just they run the gamut. They're not teenagers, but I'm sure if a teenager that was in recovery came to her, I'm sure she would consider it. I don't really know. That's something Joy would
And where is the Coffee Connection? What's the address?
681 South Avenue is that's where they roast their coffee. It's right across the street from the Hedonist Chocolate. So yummy
Coffee and chocolate.
I am going. After this session, I'm there.
They got chocolate and ice cream across the street there. And and so that's where they're located. They also have a kiosk at Marketplace Mall. And they're right outside. They're in the food court, but then they're also going to be right outside the new URMC Joint Orthopedic Center. Yep.
Oh my God, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic, because they're expanding and they're growing and they're helping more people. So each and every one of us needs to support the Coffee Connection.
Tamara, it's been so great spending this time with you. I feel a special connection, kindred spirit. And I often say this to Ellen, it's like our daughters brought us together.
Yes.
And our daughters had the same first name.
Same first
Spelled
name.
a little different, but the same first name. So I this is a connection that I would like to keep, and we'd like to be supportive of your endeavors and
thank you.
share
Yeah,
this out.
I will definitely always keep sharing everything that you guys are doing. And I appreciate this opportunity for you to talk to me about Emily's memory and all the things that she did and didn't do.
Well, we're all walking down a path we never dreamed we'd be walking down, but we're making the best of it and trying to help other people. And you know what? It's a soulful purpose, and it doesn't get better than that, right? No. There's nothing that feels better than trying to help somebody else. But we have to help ourselves too, right?
Yes.
So, we gotta,
self-care is important.
Yes.
Absolutely.
For all caregivers.
One of the common threads, I have to make this comment before we go, is when your child dies connected with mental health issues, whatever that is, there are so many things that you realize after, the unknowns that you discover, stumble on, or fall out. And then there also are so many things that you will never know in these situations. And this conversation made me really think about that today, and how prevalent that is. So I don't know, before we go, any other thoughts on that concept?
Well, there's something that I think about too, and I'm working on a second book to do with grief, but this complex grief, because sometimes people treat you very different, and like your loss shouldn't have happened. And I think that's unique to people who've died from substance use, alcoholism, an eating disorder. Those were things that shouldn't have happened, and they should have been able to stop it, or we should have been able to stop. There's not as much empathy. And I think that's a very hard space to be in, because some people are great and you don't expect everybody to get it, but you really sometimes feel it from other people. Like it doesn't matter as much.
Yep.
Would you, if you felt that?
That pervasive, it's part of that stigma. Like that is so pervasive and overwhelming. And I think all of us sitting here want to scream from the rooftops. No one would choose. These are mental health issues. They didn't want this to, and it's, you almost want to shake people up. And you want to say, start the wake up.
Right.
Yeah.
Wake up. It could happen to any of us.
Right.
And we all need to start that conversation and raise our awareness and understanding and have compassion.
Right.
My God.
And like
no one.
No, and you don't want people to really get it. You don't want them to experience what you've experienced. And I'm sure these people aren't doing it, to be cruel or anything. But that is my next book, just to impart more understanding.
Yeah,
for sure. And with doing all the other things I'm doing, it might be 50 years before it gets done. So, anyway.
It's okay. We're waiting. We're waiting.
You're one of those people like me. It's a shorter list to tell people what I don't do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, lately Jack's been telling me, Linda, you don't sit down. You're doing this. You're doing this. You got ADD. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Well, I say somebody's got to do it, right? I do need to relax more. He pulls me back, and he's right. He's right. Thank you, everybody. I feel very blessed to have a wonderful family. My husband here. I feel our son Matthew very blessed. Very blessed to have Ellen as part of our team, and her daughter Katie is with us, and her KMB for Answers. Just wonderful. And your daughter, your other daughter, amazing.
My Megan Jane. She is a force. With what we're doing with KMB, I couldn't do without her. And I know she'd say, I can't do it without you, Mom.
She's a wonderful girl, too. She really is.
Yeah.
And you are blessed with so many children. So we have so much to be grateful for,
We
right?
do.
Right.
We do. And I, during my journey, I took notes and wrote in journals and stuff about my gratitude and grief. And so I'm creating a program around that as well, because that takes some work. That is not something you're going to be able to all of a sudden just come up and
it evolves.
looks at a death. But I'm working on that. That comes with my funeral industry background.
But I also feel it's
you had a
essential.
Background in that?
Yeah, my parents owned a funeral home.
Oh, okay.
My grandfather started it. My parents owned it. I worked in it and even went to school to become a funeral director. And then when I left the funeral home, I went and taught myself digital marketing and started a bunch of funeral homes into the social sphere. They didn't know what Facebook was at the time. I started their pages. I did SEO for them and, gave them some social media strategies back in the day.
Oh, wow.
Multi-talented.
So going back, it's one question that Ellen brought up in your bio. What is SCORE?
Oh, SCORE. So SCORE is a business mentoring organization. They provide free mentoring for every stage of your business. And it could be business, nonprofit, it doesn't matter. And a corporation, we can do teams, we can do whatever, but it's free mentoring about any subjects from startup to exit strategy, growth, scaling, sales, marketing, anything you need.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do anything with foundations, people?
I'm sure we could find a mentor for a foundation. Yeah.
That's our goal for next year, is to get a foundation started. So.
Yeah.
Well, we're almost out of time, but thank you, everybody. Thank you, listeners. And we can't let this time go by without thanking Rockbox Recording and Production and our favorite sound engineer, Scott Fitzgerald, for expertly producing our podcast and so much more. Thank you. Rate, review, share, and subscribe to One Shattered Picking Up the Pieces. We promise it'll be interesting, fun, and casual.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.